This is the Office Manager Diaries, a podcast all about the highs and the lows of professionals in office management around the world. We'll delve into their career journeys and diaries, where they'll share their stories, tips for success, and things only office managers understand. Enjoy, and please remember to give us a follow.
Hello everybody, it's Hannah again with another episode of the Office Manager Diaries. This time I am really excited to be with Megan O'Connell, who is Office Manager at LendInvest. Megan and I have known each other for around about 4 or so years now, so it is an absolute pleasure to have her on the podcast. Hi Megan.
Hi, how are you?
I am really good, thank you. We're chatting on a Friday. Pouring with rain, but I think the sun's come out a bit now, so brighter times ahead, and it's the weekend. So
much brighter, yeah.
Exactly. So we're all good. So as with all our guests, I really like to dig into the background about you and your role at the moment in terms of office management. So can you start by telling us more about you and your background and how you got into office management, and then a little bit about your role specifically at LendInvest, please?
Yeah, so I think like everybody that I've heard or that I ever speak to within the office management world, it was an accident. It wasn't planned, especially because only up until very recently there's only been any form of training. I went to uni and did a sports degree. I did a degree in coaching and physical education. I was a private swimming teacher. From uni, I went on to go and do a couple of years at camp. So I coached swimming out in New York for a bit, which was probably the best experience of my life. I definitely thought that everything was leading towards sport and swimming and maybe like a little bit of a sunnier life out in the States. But I got offered first year, I got offered second year. And then when I got offered the third year, my parents interjected and said, no, Megan, go grow up. You've got to get a real job. So I can't live for the summer. I've got to live for a paycheck, basically. So when I was coming back to England, I did a bit of bar work and just kind of got myself getting some form of money in my pocket. And then I ended up kind of, I don't want to say being conned, but essentially I was conned into doing door to door. And I was 22 when I started doing it. And believe it or not, back when I was 22, I was really naive and I just like blindly followed everybody or did whatever anybody told me to do. So it was an advert that was like, are you sports minded? We're looking for, sports people. And I was like, well, I'm a sports person, I can do that. And so the fact that they dragged me around a housing estate, knocking on people's doors, flogging essentially like love film subscriptions, didn't faze me. They were just like, this is how you do it, this is what you say, and if you've got enough conviction with it, they'll give you money. And I was like, okay, then that sounds fine, I can do that. What I ended up doing was I did that for 3 years and it was purely commission. So if I had a really good day, I was in it. And if I didn't, then I was probably having a pot noodle for lunch. Yeah, so I ended up doing it for 3 years. I got really good at it. It allowed me to talk to everybody, from someone that had bath in their front garden in a council estate through to someone that was in a gated community and that you needed to buzz in to kind of somehow trick them into getting to their front door. So, and it was saying exactly the same message. So that was interesting. Like I said, I did it for 3 years and it ended quite abruptly. I then went into PAYE work, and it was initially sales, but it was less exciting. It was gym sales, so it was very mundane. People come into a gym to sign up, and if they don't sign up, then evidently you haven't really done a very good job. So it was not very challenging. And then someone said, oh, you'd be really good at recruitment, and I was like, oh, okay, then that's fine. So I ended up working in a recruitment office, but I found tinkering with the database and filling in the holes, and instead of picking up the telephone or anything like that, I found it far more satisfying to, make sure that all the fields were filled in and the cupboards were stocked and I was fixing and all that kind of stuff. So naturally we had a conversation, myself and my boss at that time, who I actually saw the other week, and it was an office within design and build and fit out, and they they recruit within that industry. So actually, I didn't realize how useful it was going to be in my future life. And I ended up having a conversation with him because we wanted to have a catch up. And I actually said to him, like, you're probably the reason why I'm sitting right here today, because you sat me down and you had a conversation with me saying, so I don't really think that you're very good on a telephone. You don't actually like to pick it up at all. And that's kind of like an issue if you're looking to get into resourcing or just be a recruiter. So how about we come up with a different plan for you? Which I think has been a theme for a few other people that you maybe have spoken to, especially like who I listened to last week. And it's been a theme. So yeah, it was that led me on to coming off the phones. That happened in 2015. And I was there until about 2019 when I realized that more money's in London and I want to try and get a little bit more experience. So I tried for roles in London and I've been working in London ever since then. I've had a few roles in London. I'm now, like I said, at LendInvest. I feel like I've really mastered the initial stuff, and the other 3 roles have definitely been like good playgrounds. And now I get to really kind of get my teeth into like the juicy parts of office management because there's so much opportunity, a bigger variety of activities and projects and everything like that. So now I'm at LendInvest and I've been here since June. And in comparison to my previous role, I had 30 people all in London. And now I have an office or a company of 250 plus people, an office in London, an office in Scotland, because of COVID, obviously, several remote workers. And we are growing, which is really, really exciting as well.
Excellent. Good. So what are the main responsibilities in your role now at LendInvest? How do you manage those, juggle it? You know, what is a typical day or perhaps a week, because there is no such thing as we know as a typical day in these roles. What are you really doing there for LendInvest?
The only kind of constant I have is a Friday where I know that attendance in the office is going to be very minimal, so I'll get quite a lot done on a Friday. But the week can vary. So I look after all the suppliers that do work and allow LendInvest to kind of exist as a physical entity. So I look after the cleaners, I manage the communication and the contracts and the liaisons with the cleaners, the M&E people, our coffee providers, our stationery providers, the list is somewhat endless. Yeah, I manage everything. So for instance, today I had 2 separate contractors, one to deal with our access control and, you know, dealing with that. And then another, obviously, to put in and deal with our new coffee machine. That hasn't gone initially very smoothly. That is still a work in progress, which is very sad for my ego this morning, but because again, it's not something that I like to deal with when plans don't necessarily go to how you imagine there to be. But the good news is that the access control went smoothly, so that's a tick on. That's one of my wins for this week. A typical week could be anything from, well, it will be anything, including our weekly lunches, any additional lunches. So if we've got new starters, we have a separate lunch for that. Welcoming new starters, making sure they're happy and they're comfortable and they know where everything is, as well as guest management. So we have a lot of clients come in, which is great. So I don't think that that's necessarily the case for a lot of businesses, but we've managed to not only bring a lot of staff back into the office, but actually convince clients and external people to have face-to-face meetings again. So it's meeting room management, it's client management, it's just general facilities upkeep throughout the course of the day, as well as obviously like cleaners, the expectation. We also, because we've got so many people that want to use the space, we use the space for external events in the evening. And so it's about kind of making sure that not only do we have the right amount of refreshments, as well as the lunches or the snacks that everybody wants, but also like setting up the space. So it's a lot of like manual furniture moving and tinkering with the AV and all that kind of thing as well. So no day is ever the same.
So how do you juggle all of that? You know, what is your system for staying organised on top of that huge variety of responsibilities in your role?
I love a list. I will write everything down. I used to be more of a physical person. Like I have notes and everything like that. And if things go really, really wild and I feel as if I haven't caught anything, then I will physically write it out, because the satisfaction of obviously crossing something out is obviously very, very strong. But what I end up doing now is I also just put everything in my calendar. I mark it. We use Google as our main email system and our calendar system. So Google, you can set things as tasks, and it comes, and then it does do a cross out for you, which is nice to have in your calendar, because then when someone looks at your calendar, you can say, oh yeah, no, that's crossed off. She has actually done something today. So that's brilliant. Especially when they can't find you for ages. They wonder where you've gone. Everybody says to me, oh, she never sits at a desk. I really shouldn't have a desk, but it is what it is. But I end up thinking about things, what I need to do, and I put it in time slots so that I know that, oh, I'm going to give myself half an hour for that. At least then, like, I've got the time for someone to come over and like interject, because 9 times out of 10 someone will. I lot everything in my calendar, and then I'm able to like mark off, and then like the calendar will automatically be like, FYI, yesterday you didn't do this, please do it, or find a no time for it, or something like that. So I tend to do everything that way. Or if it's a bigger job, I'll literally block off all the time, and then on paper I will create the smaller list, the smaller jobs within that particular block that I need to be able to do. But I never used to, my calendar looks so bare, and now, in order to kind of like allow myself to actually get stuff done, I put everything all in my calendar so people can't steal my time when I've kind of mentally blocked it off to someone else.
Well, the office staff are time thieves, aren't they? So yeah, that makes sense. So you are obviously a twice award-winning office manager with the Office Management Awards, and we have had a few office managers on now who have won the awards, like Sarah and Nabila and JP as well. None of them are sort of, I don't know whether you call it, like it's double award winner or whatever it is. These sort of Oscar superstars talk about the right terminology around it. But tell us about that experience from, I guess, putting yourself out there right up to winning, and what the response around that has been from colleagues and friends and so on, if you can, please.
I mean, it's amazing. For the while, it starts to build up now, which actually gives me a little bit of an imposter syndrome. Like, I've been listening to the other people that have been on this podcast, and like I listen to them and I'm like, oh, and I get a little bit like, oh, it's like exciting, obviously. The knowledge of actually hearing how people all are doing is great. And whilst it kind of instills a little bit of, I don't want to say fear, but kind of it gets your kind of like anxiety going again, which I haven't felt in ages. I feel like I wear such a strong cloak of confidence when I'm in the office now, because the awards itself massively changed my confidence. I guess I'll kind of like work backwards on the question. Like, before the awards happened, like the first time round, I was someone that would have an idea, articulate it, request it, and then I'd wait for permission instead of like really fighting my case, because as far as I was concerned, like there must be, like, these people own the business, so they must know better than me. I'm just highlighting that this is a fix, and if they say no to me, it's probably because they know better than me. Whereas now, that's not necessarily the case. Absolutely, that's definitely not the case. I feel like these awards gave me the Instagram blue tick. Like, it gave me my verification of being like told I am amazing at my job. And it literally, it's like you handed me the trophy, and all of a sudden that confidence was literally just like inserted into me. It was a very rapid mindset shift. Going back right to the beginning, you launched the awards during COVID. It was COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2021. So we did,
yeah,
I think we opened them up towards the end of 2020 for entry and nominations, and then the ceremony was July 2021. We had to move it, didn't we, because it got delayed and all sorts of things like that. So yes,
it was in COVID. And again, regardless of, I never really did any of your networking. I'd like sign up, and then I was one of those people that would cancel last minute, because I was like, oh, I don't know anyone. And if anybody was to like meet me now, they'd be like, oh, that's definitely not the case. But I was so kind of pensive about potentially going and hanging out in a room full of essentially strangers, but they would have only been strangers for like one night. Like, the network that is we're all in is amazing. And I look back at myself, and that's one of the regrets that I have. I really wish that I really kind of like taken that step before everything went into lockdown. But yeah, so I saw that you'd announced it, or like I'd spoken to you on LinkedIn Messenger or something, and you said, are you going to apply? And I was like, Well, I don't know. I'd been an office manager for about 2, 3 years. I think I said that to you or something like that. And you were like, oh, newcomer then. Like, what have you got to lose? And I was like, well, that's valid. And so I did, and I'm terrible. Even like I've got to do my appraisal right now for work. Even though I've like gone and waffled about myself to you guys 2 years running, giving you 11 questions of like 250 words. I find it so intimidating sometimes to talk about why I'm good and why, but it is actually really cathartic. So I went and did it, and I did the first one. I only entered for newcomer, and then like 2 weeks before the deadline, you messaged me again being like, you can enter for two. And I was like, and at that point in time, I was an office manager and PA to the client services director at Station 10. And I was like, in my plan, I'd already made a plan. I was like, this year I'll do newcomer. And then if that one goes well, regardless of whether it does well or not, this year I'll be a newcomer. And then next year I'll have enough to say about being a PA and an office manager, because I was really winging it with being a PA. Like, it was literally finger to the wind. I didn't have I was like, what do you need? And he was like, nothing. I was like, okay, I'll go do something else then. Or if he needed something, but it was literally just very kind of instantaneous. There was no plan. Whereas with the office management part of that role, I knew kind of what I was doing. I had a plan. It was like, look after the office, not the human. Oh, and I kind of articulated that to you, and I was like, oh, maybe hybrid next year. And you're like, why not hybrid this year? And I was like, because it's literally been a few months. I'd been at Station 10 for 4 months before we went into lockdown, and he was a remote worker before lockdown. So I had barely met the guy. I only really worked with him on Teams and Zoom and everything like that. So I really didn't think that working like that was even a viable option. I went and I called my dad actually, and I was like, Dad, so I'm going to do this again. And he was like, what? And I was like, I've just read the other one. I was like, yeah, so. And then I went back to you and I said, how many of the questions are the same? Are they judged by the same people? And you were like, no. And I was like, so if like there's the same question and I can use the answer twice? And you were like, yeah. And I was like, phew. So I only had to come up with a few more answers. I spent that weekend and I went over to my dad's house, and he made me work in his office. I don't bring me cups of tea every now and again. And then he proofread some stuff, and I submitted it. And a bit like, so today, as I've seen just before we started recording, there's been posts about the awards and everything like that. And I remember seeing that email come through. I was actually on a call with one of my colleagues, like one of the senior team at Station 10. She was talking, and then I was like reading my emails, and all of a sudden, oh, congratulations, you're a finalist. And I went, oh, and she was like, what's happened? Thinking like something's happened in my house or something. I was like, oh my God, I'm a finalist. And she was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, newcomer, that's amazing. And then the next one came through, like we carried on talking, and then the next one came through like 10 minutes later. I went, oh my God. And I was a little bit more expressive than that, but I don't know what kind of stimulating we're doing it. I was like, I'm hybrid as well. And I genuinely was like so blown away by it, because I just assumed that there was going to be so many people with so much more experience than I that had so much more to say than I did. And I was a finalist with them. I found that like so great. That was enough. That was the win in for that myself. And then you come to the awards night, and it is so much fun. Like, it's literally like Christmas for office managers. It's brilliant. And I took 2 of my friends, and we had an amazing time. And newcomer was there, and they videoed. All my friends just videoed and took photos for the whole night. I literally have some of the best memories, and the memories that I can't remember, they're literally there on camera. And they annoyingly got, which you reference quite a lot, my reaction to not winning newcomer of the year. And it was literally like, please, 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 please. Oh, no. And you were like, there's so much disappointment in your face, Megan. I genuinely, because I thought that was my only hope for that night. And then I was like, all right then, well, looks like we're gonna have a knees up then. So we had amazing food, we drank loads of wine, we got the Prosecco, all that kind of thing. And then hybrid gets announced, and I was so like, I'd written myself off so much for it. And then my name gets announced, and like, it's a bit like, those Tom and Jerry cartoons where like the tin just dropped to the floor. Again, they've got a GIF of it. Like, they literally made it into a GIF and they use it very regularly now.
Please send me this GIF. I've not seen this one.
It's like, and I do the slow turn to like look at the sign with my name on it or something like that. And I'm literally so stunned that my application won over all the other people that were in that. And like, there are so many people in this role that do have a hybrid role that I could only assume, and I think you said that it was a very highly subscribed category. So to kind of win and top that, I was just so stunned. And I went up, I cried. I think I was the first crier of the night, and that was the second to last award. So that was great. The confidence was installed straight away. I had a day off the next day, obviously, as you should even. And I walked back in on Monday, and my attitude to the whole thing was so different. Only for the better, obviously. Like, the one thing that I just realized then and there was like, I am the most knowledgeable person about my job in my business, because there is no one else that, like, they all have like an idea, but they don't have the inner knowledge, because they don't have time to really get to know why you're covering the role that you're doing and all that kind of thing. Like, we cover so many things: cleaning, maintenance, morale, environment, and anything could go wrong at any one time, or anything could be needed to amended or fixed or improved or whatever, or just maintained. And not everybody understands the why. So we are the most knowledgeable people about the physical entity of the business. And I just went in with a whole different confidence. And then the second year, I knew that I had a fit out to do. When we did the first awards, I was just about to go and start my physical stage of my fit out of our new office. And I stood on that stage, and I was like, or maybe not stood on it maybe wasn't on the stage at that specific time, but I remember kind of visualizing myself being like, oh, my project is going to win, and I'm going to stand here again next year. Not many people can say that they've won an award for their first ever fit out. That is a claim to fame that I am very, very, very proud to own. And so I did exactly what I did last year, the year before even, and I collated as much photographic evidence throughout the fit out and everything like that. And I wanted to make sure that I could really tell the story of how I made everything come from my head, essentially, and the designer's head, and how we made that come to bums on seats, using the facilities, and for everybody kind of like using it as a day-to-day entity. I also thought, seeing as my plan you pushed my plan forward a little bit, instead of obviously entering the hybrid office manager of the year, I won that, job done. So I also wanted to then enter office manager of the year. So unfortunately I didn't win, but I did come second. So I'm happy to have come second to Sarah, because she is a phenomenal person as well. And it's been really great to get to know her and everything like that as well. But it just made me a little bit more hungry to ensure that I could potentially get that one this year as well. So I'm not finished just yet.
She's ever reaching, which is good. And it's nice that people can go for different awards every year, which is why we've got the spread of the categories, but also that people can put themselves forward year after year after year. And I know it can be a difficult process when you're sitting in the room, because I have been up for awards and not won, and it can feel, like your face said it all, as we said at the newcomer one, where you are a bit deflated. You have put effort in and time into it, so that is completely natural, and there's nothing selfish or wrong about immediately feeling like that. But I think it is the taking part does matter, because the opportunities that come from just that night alone, let alone the journey and filling it out and everything else, has so much value. So
I'm also the biggest advocate for getting people to actually do the application. There are so many people that over this year and last year that I've spoken to at like these networking events, where they're like, oh, I don't know, oh, it sounds, and I'm just like, why wouldn't you do it? Firstly, it's really cathartic. Like, you don't know how much you do until you end up letting it spill out of a pen. What's the worst that's going to happen? Someone reads that actually you're doing an amazing job, and you get to be recognized with a group of people that are doing just as good a job as you. Obviously there can only be one winner, but at the same time, to be acknowledged, and for someone who has been there, done that, or is within your industry that, that has done your role in the past or something like that, the judges, for them to just read your application and then like know who you are, and like it just gets the conversation going. It allows you to get your name out there. And regardless, even though office managers are back of house and behind the scenes people, I do firmly believe that they need to be known, and you should be confident enough to know that you should put yourself out there, and it is only a good thing for self-promotion.
Should have got you on before I closed the deadline, shouldn't I, for this year's award?
I'll do it for you next year. you can soundbite that and just put it out there next year.
Yeah, you guys can just come to the ceremony this year if you haven't entered, and see what it's like. I think this actual episode will be sponsored by the Office Management Awards, so there'll be a plug at some point.
My tip for this week's episode is all about office moves. The moment when you find out that your office is going to move, or you know in advance that a move is coming up because the lease is coming to an end, or you're in an office space that's perhaps a little bit too small for you now and you're clearly outgrowing it with the growth of the business. I know a lot of people get that kind of heart palpitating moment of dread and think, oh, an office move. A, how on earth am I going to fit this in because I've already got zero capacity? But B, particularly for those who have never done an office move before, it can be really quite daunting. For me, and you may have heard this on one of the episodes recently with Emma Martin, I love doing office moves. I think it's a really good way to be integrated into the business fully, to understand the business, to get to know employees if you haven't done to date, particularly if you are a little bit newer to that business, because you pretty much need to know the names of everybody, more so in less of a hot desking environment, but still very much in a hot desking environment, in order to fulfill the need to get everybody moved. And it's a really fun way, particularly if you are doing an office fit out with that, to understand more about the company's vision and future, and all the aesthetics and things that they want to have to really give the message and the culture and the brand and values and all that kind of good stuff. So shopping and spending someone else's money is always quite good fun. But when it does come to office moves, my biggest tip is the first thing around this is communication. It really is so key, and there is a pun in there with moves, to make sure that you are communicating effectively and you are being communicated to effectively, and that you're setting the bar in relation to that. By that, I mean, if you feel like an office move is coming up because you can see there's a struggle with capacity, or a lease or a serviced office agreement or whatever it might be is coming to an end, you have it on your meeting one-to-one radar to speak to your boss or to speak to your boss's boss about it, or whoever you've got that relationship with, to say, are we going to have to move offices in 18 months, a year's time, whatever? I would really love to be involved as soon as possible, because I can then make sure I deliver the best possible move for us. I can make it more of a success if I have longer to plan it and we do it properly, and I can really get to grips with this project and manage it effectively. So letting them know that you need to know as soon as possible, and you need to be involved in those conversations as early as possible, is really, really important. And communicating yourself as part of that move is making sure that you are bringing people into the process as early as you're permitted to. There'll be points when clearly you're not going to be allowed to tell the wider audience about it. But when you can, carefully picking who you communicate with, who you perhaps use for working groups to get opinions on, and making sure that when it comes to the actual names to desks, floor plans, you're getting that out there in good time if you do have fixed desks, so that people who have issues with not sitting at the window seat anymore, or not wanting to be below certain air conditioning vents or lights that are too bright and so on and so forth, you can address those issues much sooner than the day that the move happens, or in the aftermath of the move. So getting in early, getting the communication out there is probably one of my biggest tips around office moves. There's plenty more to share, and I will be sharing more as the episodes continue.
Okay, so now is the bit in the episode where we ask you to share something from your office management diary, or as we dub it, a you won't believe it, but
I had to really think about this because I feel that sometimes I plan so much and I create a timeline to make sure that anything that could slip through there isn't going to cause too much catastrophe, that I wasn't really sure what I was going to talk about. You won't believe it, but when I started Station 10, I might got a phone call in the morning as I was getting ready, and it was from an unknown number. And I just looked at that number and I was like, oh, this is going to be them telling me that they don't want me anymore. They've made a mistake or something like that. But when I answered the phone, it was my new CEO, and he asked me how I was. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine, just getting ready. He's like, oh, you're not on your way to the office just yet, are you? And I was like, oh, no, I don't need to be until 10. That's still okay, right? And he was like, well, unfortunately, I found out last night that Paul, who was going to be my line manager, passed away. Yes, so I started at Station 10 to a morning office who had just lost one of their senior members of staff who had been there for probably about 7 to 10 years or something like that. And he was like one of the cogs, obviously, because he was part of the operations of the office, operations of the actual like end product and everything like that. He was a massive part, and I didn't really know what to do with that. So naturally, I went straight into office manager mode from the phone call. I was literally sitting at my dressing table, having half a face done. I had done my foundation, done my done my powder, and I was just about to start doing the left side because I'm weird. I do like half my face and then I do the other half of my face. Because I wear lashes. So I did my brow, I put the glue on my lashes, I did my brow, I did my eyeliner, I did my underliner, and then I put the lash on, and then my phone rang. And like I said, I didn't know who it was, but I had this bad feeling that they were going to tell me that actually we would change their mind. And so I said, hello. And he was like, it's David. And David, regardless of the fact that that was a really like sad period, he always talks with loads of pregnant pauses. And I'd never met him before nor spoken to him. So I wasn't really sure when to talk and when not to, or if he was like, you know, obviously he was upset and he was potentially struggling to kind of like keep faith before getting his words out or anything like that. So he first off interjected and said, firstly, we still really want you to start. And from that point, I then turned into like the office manager, and I was like, okay, cool. Well, then there's 2 or 3 options. Firstly, if you need the morning, I can still come in and obviously we can go that, but I don't feel like that's probably the best thing to do. Or I can come in this afternoon once you've told all the staff. Obviously, this was pre-pandemic, so this was 5 days a week, everybody in the office, no ifs, no buts. You can take the morning, I can come in after lunch, I can come meet you all then, or I can just we can see how it goes and I'll come in and we'll try again tomorrow. And he was like, yeah, let's do tomorrow. So then I put the phone down and I was kind of like, well, what do I do now? Do I finish my face? Do I take it off? I just went, and then I went in the next day and I met David for the first time. And again, he's an amazing man. He's lovely. He showed me around the office. The first thing he did is he showed me the fridge. This is the fridge. I was like, I'll figure it out. It's fine. You crack on and everything like that. So,
I mean, that must have been really tough, and you know, it's good in some ways that the business carried on and that you were able to start. But yeah, very challenging. And as you say, if he had such an impact there, it must have been really difficult to deal with that and to, I guess, build relationships with staff in that time when everybody is as you say, in a state of mourning. So thank you for sharing. So what would you say culture is like at LendInvest, and how do you feel you impact and influence on that?
LendInvest has an amazing culture. It had an amazing culture before I came here. If anything, I'd like to think that I've only enhanced it. The office day to day, I think when I arrived, small things like there was no music in the office. I think music is a massive benefit to the office. It's brilliant for kind of water cooler moments. I tried to put on like either in the 90s or like, you know, remixes, so that it kind of, if people manage to catch it and they'll be like, what is this? Oh, I haven't heard this since, oh my God, this is such an old song, that kind of thing. But it also, because we've got so many internal meetings and everything like that, it also creates like a kind of cubicle wall in like our town hall area. We don't have enough meeting rooms for the amount of meetings that need to happen in the office. So for those smaller kind of more like informal ones or catch-ups or anything like that. There can be many that happen within like our communal area without anyone's conversation traveling unnecessarily far. So I genuinely believe that is something that's aided towards the culture. We do a lot of socials. One thing that happened, that I joined the social team as soon as I got here. I feel that it's only right that the office manager is there, because 9 times out of 10, even if you're not in the team, you are going to be asked to, like, you're going to be, because you've got the keys to the castle, haven't you? So you need to be involved whether you like it or not. And I can't imagine that any office manager would be like, no socials, no thank you. That's not my vibe. You're a people person if you're an office manager. So we do a lot of socials. The one thing that we did was, it was always either very big or just very office based. So the one thing that I brought to the table since starting LendInvest is we do these just because socials. They don't have there's no rhyme or reason for them. There's no kind of, it's not for anything. It's literally just because we want to let our hair down, just because it's turning into summer, spring, just because we want to have a drink with each other, just because we've got new team members and we want to get to know everybody in an informal setting. We've done 2 so far and both of them have been really good. We did the first one at Putt Shack, and we were able to take like 35 people into a private area, have games, have food, have drinks. And then we did another one at Fair Game, which they were all very excited for, because obviously Fair Game is something that's brand new in London and you can't get in there for love nor money at the moment. So I felt like I'd literally like won the lottery when I managed to kind of befriend Lola there. And it's just been so much fun. Like, I get a budget, I spend the budget on, like I said, a little bit of food, a little bit of drink, and obviously the games. And then anything beyond that, like, they know that it's like it's self-funded beyond that. But it just allows everybody to kind of let their hair down, meet people that they wouldn't necessarily kind of cross with, because we have so many departments. And it's just been a massive success. And like, people talk about it as like, you know, oh, when's the next just because, or, you know, just because, like, what can we, and they're starting to like give ideas and stuff like that as well. So I didn't really have to come in and like reinvent the wheel, because they already had it sussed.
Keep it going. Good. What would you say are maybe some of your biggest achievements, or achievement, if we're just going with one, win or success moment? And what about any tough moments, the sort of low times as well? Can you share a couple of those?
I think my biggest success, and I feel like that would be the case for any office manager, would be the office move that I did for Station 10. I did it on my own in a pandemic, essentially with very minimal inside help and what was required for outside help. So just the contractors and everything like that. It was the biggest learning curve I've ever had, but actually so satisfying. As I said earlier, like, the knowledge of, like, I am solely, or 99%, the only reason that this has actually happened. It was a massive job. There will be people out there that are doing much bigger fit outs, and did do much bigger fit outs in the time frame that I did it. But the first fit out that I've ever done, and it was not only on my own, but it was in a pandemic. Like, the shopping for it was like in January of the pandemic. There was literally tumbleweed going through London when we were looking at the different spaces and just learning the process of it. And then obviously the cherry on top of that was the fact that when I wrote about it, it was deemed good enough to be award worthy. So that's my biggest achievement. Having said that, like, within that, there were so many stresses that naturally come with a fit out. The one thing that I think probably sent me close to the edge was the fact that when it came to the move, the survey wasn't done that well. And the one thing that I have learnt since is that when someone takes the quote and says, oh, we don't need that, oh yeah, no, we don't need that either, make sure you listen to what they say that you don't need and that they're trying to save money on, because 9 times out of 10, the job, if it's quoted for, it means that it's probably needed, especially in a fit out. Like, everything, there is a reason for paying for everything. The only frivolous stuff is going to be the bells and whistles of like the actual like visuals of it. But when it comes to like the project management of the furniture, and when it comes to the project management of the move itself, like, if there's someone saying, oh, like, we don't need that, take that line out, please ask and say, well, who's going to do that then? Because it still has to happen. That's the thing I didn't do. So they took out the furniture project manager of the quote, and they took out the move project manager. And I didn't realize that that specifically wasn't in the package, I guess. And when it came to move day and it all started to go wrong, I was like, well, where's the person in charge? And they were like, who are you? And I was like, I'm the client. And they were like, oh, he's not here. And I was like, why is he not here? And it's a bit of an oxymoron, this whole like thing, because whilst it was the greatest achievement I've done, it was the most stressful thing I've done as well, which is from talking to so many other office managers, it seems to be the trend. Like it's always stressful, but always so satisfying. They couldn't get my long kitchen table, they couldn't get it in, even though he'd looked at the new sites, and they couldn't get the table in, they couldn't get it around the last corner. And they were like, what do you want us to do with it? And I was like, well, I pay rent here in this room, and I pay rent in that other room that you were just in the other building 4 stories up. So if you can't get it in here, I guess you've got to take it back. And then they tried to be like, oh, can we not leave it in the hallway? And I was like, again, I pay rent here, or I pay rent up there. And so, and they asked again, they were like, oh, what about the room in the old building is still is open, can we put it there? And I was like, again, so I pay rent here and they ended up taking it up. This furniture, by the time I went to go look at it, was all scratched, and I wouldn't pay the invoice until they went and fixed all the furniture and all the scratches in my desk legs. I had the person in charge of our fit out come find me that day and take me to the pub, because he was worried that he was going to find me in a corner rocking. So that was probably like my most stressful moments.
Yeah, for sure. And I think these sort of projects do test us to our limit, because you have your day job still to do as well. So it's an on top of. So how do you make your role a success? And do you have a tip or two perhaps to share with fellow office managers and those listening?
I guess back at the like I said at the beginning, I truly believe that door to door has been a great foundation for me. I have learnt specifically how to make someone talk, how to engage someone in conversation, how to make them come around to my way of thinking, and how to maximize my day. Because again, I got out of my day what I put into it. I don't intentionally like work to those particular values now, but when you sit down and you think about it, and like every now and again I'll be like, why do I do that? How did I it's weird why I still do that. And when I was doing door to door, they were talking about like there's 5 steps to a great conversation. So in order to explain or get people to my way of thinking, like I still structure how my conversations that way. So, and 9 times out of 10 I managed to still kind of like get people into my way of thinking. So the 5 steps are an introduction, a short story, a presentation, a close, and a consolidation. So you've got your introduction. I'm going to explain to you who I am. So my name's Megan. I'm an office manager. I blah, 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 blah. The short story, this is my problem. This is what I need from you. Blah, 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 blah. The presentation, this is what I'm expecting. This is what I need to do. This is what I want in the end. The close, bringing it all to an end, and, you know, wrapping it up and everything like that. And then the consolidation is just, you get it right, or something like that. So it's literally just kind of like bringing it in, and you remain like the Geppetto of the scenario. Alongside that, there's 8 great working habits. So the first one is have a great attitude, because your attitude is your armor. Always be on time, because your time is precious. Be prepared. Go into meetings knowing what you're going to say, what you want out of it, how things are going to happen. Go into any situation. So make sure that you know what your contractors are supposed to be doing. Just make sure that you are prepared for the scenario that you're about to walk into. 4 is have 100% effort. So don't half-ass anything. If it's half-assed, then what's the point? The 5th one, it was work your full territory or network. So for when I was doing door, it was like when I was doing door to door, don't prejudge a door. So, oh, that one's a bit ratty and it's got cobwebs all over it and everything like that. So I'm not going to knock it, but actually they might be the best people behind that door. So work your full work your full network, like the Slack channel, the portal that's perfect for this kind of thing, because there are so many experts or people out there that are doing exactly what you're doing, but if you don't ask the question, then why suffer in silence, basically? So don't not use your network. The 6th one is maintain your attitude, because as I said, by having a great attitude, it is your armor for the day. If someone chinks your armor, center yourself again, bring yourself back up to 100, and make sure that, you know, you don't let things affect you, basically. 7 is know your why. So why are you doing this? For not only for the short term, but obviously for the long term as well. So like what's the goal in the long run, whether it be career wise or whether it's because I need to get, like for instance, I had my access control put under my desk today, which is so bougie, but at the same time the reason why is because A, I don't want to get up and answer the door for people, and B, it's when I onboard people, it means that I don't have to get up, go to the door, scan their cards, to come back to my desk, and then if I've got 5 or 6 to do, so the short-term fix is to get it on my desk. So that's the why. The long-term why, the long-term goal is another thing. And then 8 is take control. So don't let people walk all over you. Maintain the sense of I am the client, or I am in charge of this area, and this is how we run things and everything like that. So I didn't realize when I was taught them back when I was 22 that they were actually so malleable for every area of your life. It doesn't have to be for professional life. It can be for your like social life and like for, you know, your life just in general and everything like that. But it is so relevant regardless of any situation, and it allows you to stay on track and everything like that. So
yeah, that's really good, and I think you're right, they are some really good tips and very well structured as well, so hopefully that helps our listeners. Even if you just take a couple of them, I think they'll probably help you in your office management careers. So as a final question then for this episode, where do you see yourself in the next few years? Are there any specific goals or aspirations that you have?
I would like to think that I would stay where I am for a very long time. I think there's like so much opportunity for me to like grow professionally here around the people that I'm working with and everything like that. Short term, I think if we're classing short term within the next couple of years, like I'd like to think that we've got a small office in Glasgow at the moment, and most of our recruitment is happening in Glasgow. So I'd hope that we outgrow our space in Glasgow to warrant a permanent space for us, because we've got a service office space in Glasgow at the moment. It would be nice to kind of get my teeth into a Scottish fit out maybe. Through that, I can only think that opportunity to build an admin team here in London and in Scotland would be something that I'd be super, super excited about. So I think people forget that you can't be everywhere. So like, I really hope that there'll be a little bit of hope when we finally do get to be in our own space up there. And I guess that kind of like leads me into like the long-term goal. I want to be able to, first, I want to learn and then completely own running a team. Line management, I think, is one thing that I just haven't had a chance to like experience just yet. However, I think about it and then I'm like, oh, you kind of line manage like the cleaners and like the suppliers and everything like that. So you kind of have a taste in it, but they're not staff, they are contractors, and it's a very different relationship. Like I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know if you would want another you there either. Yeah, but no, line management can be very rewarding, and yeah, even if you can just give them support and guidance to get a couple of the good qualities or skills that you have, then that I think is someone doing a good job as a line manager. So thank you so much for giving up some of your time, Megan, to be with me on the Office Manager Diaries. Had a really good time getting to know you better. And yeah, what a great episode. Hopefully you have enjoyed, listeners.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. I was actually so nervous to do this, and I don't know why, because I love talking about myself and I love talking to you. So realistically, there was nothing to worry about.
This episode of the Office Manager Diaries is sponsored by the Office Management Awards, a global awards programme aimed at recognising, rewarding and celebrating office management professionals around the world. Tickets to this year's ceremony are on sale now, taking place in London on Thursday the 15th of June. For more information, go to www.theofficemanagementgroup.com/the-awards, and we really hope to see you there.